But let's start with a great piece you wrote for Newsweek outlining the lie behind President Joe Biden's economic agenda, dubbed Bidenomics. This piece is really fantastic because it talks about how Bidenomics is seeking to gaslight the nation. You detail how Joe Biden is clearly making the economy front and centre of his 2024 campaign. He's released this ad recently.
They said millions would lose their jobs and the economy would collapse. But this president refused to let that happen. Instead, he got to work, fixing supply chains, fighting corporate greed, passing laws to lower the cost of medicine, cut utility bills, and make us more energy independent.
He talks there also about securing energy independence and fixing supply chains. I mean, does he think the entire country is suffering from some sort of collective amnesia?
Well, it's kind of ironic, Rita, because that probably is what the very senile commander-in-chief here is suffering on a daily basis. And you might think that he is kind of wish casting that the electorate is suffering the same thing, because that's probably the only way that this man is in good chance, or good standing, I should say, to be reelected next fall. Now, when it comes to this Bidenomics pitch, which he's very clearly making the center of his campaign, one of two things could be true. One is, the first possibility is that the economy has actually been good. The second possibility is that everything else has actually been so catastrophically terrible that he has no choice but to try to make things up and choose to run on one of the less bad options. And I think that it is easily the latter. If you look at the southern border in the United States, it is the worst it's ever been. There are countless untold migrants flooding across the border. You look at crime and homelessness and drugs in inner city America, the absolute worst has ever been the metastasis of Soros prosecutors all across major blue American urban enclaves. Talk about the world stage, the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, this terrible ransom deal with Iran, the Chinese Communist Party getting ever closer to what looks like a possible full-scale invasion of Taiwan. He's falling asleep in Hanoi, Vietnam. He's making a fool of himself at the G20 with India. I mean, everywhere he's messing up, so he has no choice but to try to make economics the centerpiece of his campaign. The problem, Rita, as I laid out in that column, is that the data show a very different side of the story. So in 2022, the United States formally entered a recession. We had back-to-back quarters of negative GDP growth. Now, Joe Biden's henchman, Brian Deese, his chief economist, and Karine Jean-Pierre, the dim-witted White House press secretary, they tried to redefine in real time what a recession is. But last I checked, the universally accepted definition of what an economic recession is consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. Furthermore, in the summer of 2022, inflation reached the absolute worst it has been since the infamous stagflation of Jimmy Carter. It reached 9.1% annualized at its absolute highest basis. It's still, by the way, way above what the Federal Reserve targets, which is 2%. It's about 3.5% to 4% now. The median mortgage payment for an American trying to get a home is literally double what it was just 3 years ago in 2020. And I could go on and on there, but just in that ad alone, and I'll finish with this thought, I mean, he's talking there in that ad about energy independence and supply chains. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, he canceled the Keystone XL pipeline on day one of his presidency. He canceled millions of acres of oil and natural gas leases in northern Alaska on the very first day of his presidency. This president has been forced to grovel around the world to rogue regimes like Venezuela and Iran to produce more oil because we're not producing any of the oil that we are so blessed in this country to actually live upon. Supply chains, I mean, again, are you kidding me? In 2021, around Christmas time, little kids weren't getting their Christmas presents because there was an infamous supply chain crisis. So it's a total lie, soup to nuts. It's pure gaslighting, and I do not think it's going to work.